Now, listen, if we're gonna bring Victor Von Doom to the screen, then I think we're gonna need the greatest actor in the world to play that character. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the one person who could play Victor Von Doom.
New mask, same task.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brendan Kelleher, and I wasn't planning on making this video, but I'm recording this the day after it was announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not as Iron Man, but as one of Marvel's greatest villains, Doctor Doom.
You didn't see that coming?
To say that this is unexpected is quite an understatement. Now, for the last couple of years in the Marvel movies, they've had this thing called the multiverse. And basically what it is an excuse to have all kinds of variations of established characters and different actors playing different roles. Frankly, I've always thought that this is a bit of a gimmick, but Marvel have really leaned into this in the last couple of years, primarily with the Kang storyline that they started in the Loki show, I believe. Now, I didn't watch the Loki show, but they introduced this villain called Kang, and he was supposed to be the next big threat after Thanos. And to say that this didn't work out well for Marvel would be an understatement, both for creative reasons and for real-life reasons. For one thing, Ant-Man beat him in Ant-Man Quantumania last year, and the actor who plays him, Jonathan Majors, not only does he not come across as very threatening at all, but the fact is, he's been convicted for assault. So Marvel have ditched him, and that threw all their plans into disarray. And the question remained, how were Marvel going to regroup after this? Because Kang was supposed to be the villain in the next two Avengers movies. They were supposed to be titled Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. So obviously Marvel had to scramble and change their plans. And it seems that they've done that, because they announced at San Diego Comic-Con just recently that the next Avengers movie that's supposed to come out in May 2026 is called Avengers Doomsday. And as that title suggests, that means Doctor Doom is going to be the villain. Now, spoiler alert, Iron Man died at the end of Avengers Endgame. And for the last couple of years, people have been wondering, is Robert Downey Jr. going to come back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point? And most people thought that if this was going to happen, it was going to be as Iron Man. And I don't think anyone realized that it would be as a villain. So Doctor Doom is known primarily for being a Fantastic Four villain. He's an old friend of Reed Richards, leader of the Fantastic Four. Now, the Fantastic Four movie is being made now, and they've got Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards, and God help us. Just for record, I think Pedro Pascal is terrible casting as Reed Richards. I'm just sick and tired of seeing that actor. I won't go as far as to say that he's a bad actor. He's just there, you know what I mean? And he's just completely overexposed. But anyway, that's besides the point. The whole point is Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU to play Doctor Doom. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And to be honest, I've mixed feelings about this. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is just iconic. He's just synonymous with that role as much as Hugh Jackman is to Wolverine, or Harrison Ford is to Indiana Jones. To have him come back play a villain, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. Now, one film that comes to mind with him playing a villain is US Marshals. Now, if any of you have seen that movie, he plays a complete and utter piece of shit in that movie. And the ironic thing that Robert Downey Jr. was considered to play a different villain in another franchise, Star Wars. Now, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, you'll know that there was a character called Grand Admiral Thrawn that was introduced in the Star Wars Expanded Universe novels that began in the mid-1990s. And that character was introduced in the animated show Rebels and was introduced in live action in the Ahsoka show last year. And for the longest time, Robert Downey Jr. was actually rumored to be playing Grand Admiral Thrawn, which would have been unusual casting, but I wouldn't have said no to that. Personally, I think Benedict Cumberbatch would have been awesome in that role, but that's besides the point. Now, on one hand, the idea of Robert Downey Jr. coming back to play a villain in the MCU, it just feels wrong. At the end of the last James Bond film, No Time to Die, James Bond, spoiler alert, died. So that signaled the end of the Daniel Craig era of James Bond movies. Now, obviously, there's going to be a reboot of James Bond at some stage with an all new continuity. Now, imagine if in the next era of James Bond movies, they got Daniel Craig to come back and play a villain like Ernst Stavro Blofeld. That's how I feel about Robert Downey Jr. coming back to play Doctor Doom. The other thing is that there's so many great actors out there who could have done a really great job playing Doctor Doom. Now, as flawed as the Fantastic Four movies in the mid 2000s were, they actually got a really good actor to play Doctor Doom in those ones. Julian McMahon, I think the actor's name was. Now, of course, there was that terrible Fantastic Four reboot in 2015, I think it was, and the actor was Toby Kebbell. And it wasn't entirely his fault, but that particular version of Doctor Doom, just like the rest of that movie, was terrible, just absolutely terrible. But in this new version of the Fantastic Four they're making, there are so many good actors who could play a great Doctor Doom. My personal choice would have been Mads Mikkelsen. Now, I know he's been overused as a villain in many movies, like he's been a James Bond villain, he's been an Indiana Jones villain, but he's cast in these roles for a reason. He's just an extremely good actor and he's just great at playing villains. And the thing about Doctor Doom is he's extremely intelligent. He's like super intelligent, and I think Mads Mikkelsen would really bring that menace and that intelligence to Doctor Doom. Now, it is kind of ironic because Doctor Doom is like an evil version of Iron Man. He's a scientist, he wears armor, and he's just very, very intelligent. The other thing I found out recently was that Robert Downey Jr. actually auditioned for Doctor Doom in 2005. Isn't that interesting? The thing is, Robert Downey Jr. was such perfect casting for Tony Stark was because his character arc was very similar to the real life story of Robert Downey Jr. Like, I'm sure you all know the real life troubles that Robert Downey Jr. had before his casting as Iron Man back in the day. It was a real redemption for him, just as Tony Stark becoming Iron Man was a redemption for that character. But yeah, there's so many good actors who could play Doctor Doom, and the idea of bringing Robert Downey Jr. back it sounds gimmicky to me. You know what I mean? Now, I will say that I'm glad that he's not coming back to play another version of Iron Man, because that would really, really cheapen the character's death in Endgame. When you look at the journey of Tony Stark from the beginning of the first Iron Man to his demise in Endgame, it's such a perfect character arc. He goes from being a very selfish character to being a hero to being the ultimate hero when he sacrificed himself for all humanity. And Robert Downey Jr. has said himself in interviews that he didn't want to cheapen that. So I never believed that he would actually come back. And I've always gotten the impression that he wanted to move on from Marvel. I mean, the fact that he was in Oppenheimer last year and he got an Oscar for it, I thought he wouldn't go near comic book movies again. It is funny how when actors win Oscars, they finally get offered these comic book movies and they agree to appear in them. You'd think they want to keep on doing dramatic, serious roles and stay away from comic book movies, but it's funny how that goes. I guess it's hard to resist the money. And how much more money does Robert Downey Jr. need anyway? But let's face it, it is a gimmick. And some people have said that it's a sign of desperation from Marvel because they'll never admit that they're wrong, but all the signs show that they're trying to course correct. Amongst other things, the Marvels that came out last year, that was a complete and utter disaster. It was one of the biggest box office flops of all time. And I'm pretty sure the idea at the time was that Captain Marvel would be the leader of the Avengers in the next Avengers movie. Now, the Marvels was such a catastrophic failure that I just don't see that happening now. Yeah, that's something that we'll come back to later as to who will be leading the Avengers and who will actually be the Avengers in the next Avengers movie. The thing about the multiverse is that, as gimmicky as it is, it gives them creative freedom to bring in any actor they want to play any character they want. Wouldn't it be interesting, though, that the universe that Doctor Doom is from, if there was an Iron Man in that universe, and the actor that they get to play Iron Man in that universe would be Julian McMahon? Wouldn't that be interesting? I wouldn't put it past them, actually, given what we just saw in Deadpool and Wolverine. But what I really want to do here in this video is point out what I believe are the pros and cons of Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU to play Doctor Doom. Now, for one thing, Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor. Now, I know some people think that he's just a movie star who plays himself when he's playing Iron Man, but I think that's just because the character of Tony Stark just suits him so well. But if you take a look back at Robert Downey Jr.'s career, he's played a wide variety of characters. Heroes, villains, some characters who are in between. So no matter what happens, I'm sure he's going to give a fantastic performance as Doctor Doom, because he has played villains before. Like I said, watch US Marshals. The other advantage is that it'll add emotional weight to the Avengers' battle against Doctor Doom. Because the idea of the Avengers go up against a villain who looks like one of their greatest heroes from their universe, it's going to add a lot of emotional drama. Actually, if I was a betting man, I would say they're definitely going to bring back Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts. Can you just imagine the emotional drama when Pepper Potts sees Doctor Doom looking like Tony Stark? Just like it will be for the rest of the Avengers. So yeah, there's a lot of great emotional drama that can be mined there. And of course, with the multiverse, there are endless possibilities. Not just Robert Downey Jr. appearing as Doctor Doom, but I mean, what next? Could they get Chris Evans to play the Mole Man? They would never go that far, would they? The other thing is, it makes the MCU feel relevant again, which I'm sure is what Kevin Feige is counting on. Because, like I said earlier, he'll never admit it, but all the signs are that he's trying to course correct, because they can't just deny that Marvel has suffered some big failures over the last few years. And I suppose from their point of view, if they just got a really good actor to play Doctor Doom, that's just not enough. Bring Robert Downey Jr. back to the MCU this way is going to create a lot of buzz, and that's what they're counting on, and buzz equals box office dollars. Okay, so now I'm going to point out some of the disadvantages of having Robert Downey Jr. play Doctor Doom. And like I said earlier, it feels gimmicky. Just a stunt to get people interested and back on board again. Because let's face it, if Marvel were firing on all cylinders, both on television and film, I don't think this casting would have happened. Well, I don't think this casting was going to happen in the last year or two anyway, because they were really counting on Kang being the next big villain. But of course, they had to get rid of him. The other nagging feeling I have is that there are other great actors out there who could have really played this role well. Like I said, Mads Mikkelsen, or maybe Daniel Craig, or maybe even Pierce Brosnan. But I feel this isn't enough for Marvel anymore. They really need a stunt like this to get people interested in the MCU again. Also, as great a villain as Doctor Doom is, he's really a Fantastic Four villain, and that means he's automatically a step down from Thanos. It's hard to believe any villain providing as big a threat as Thanos. Also, the question we have to ask is who are going to be the Avengers in the next Avengers movie? Because Iron Man is gone, Chris Evans' Captain America is gone, and there's just no way I see them having Captain Marvel lead the Avengers, not after the disaster that was the Marvels last year. So is it going to be Sam Wilson's Captain America? That all depends on how well Captain America Brave New World is received. Like I said in one of my earlier videos, that movie is being completely reshot. It's just been a complete and utter disaster. But the proof will be in the pudding. If that movie turns out well, I can perfectly see Captain America, Sam Wilson's Captain America leading the Avengers. But of course, Marvel have announced two Avengers movies. There's Avengers Doomsday, which will obviously have Doctor Doom being the main villain. And then there's Secret Wars the following year. Now, for those who aren't aware of the storyline from the comics, the story of Secret Wars, where this immortal being called the Beyonder takes all the villains of the Marvel Universe and all the villains of the Marvel Universe, whisks them off to a distant galaxy, dumps them on a planet, and basically says, fight! That's basically it. And Doctor Doom was involved in that storyline. Everyone was involved in that storyline. The X-Men, the Avengers. Yeah, I can pretty much see the X-Men being involved with this now that X-Men are back with Marvel. So yeah, overall, like a lot of people, I have mixed feelings about this. Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor, and it'll be great to see him playing such a big role like this. I've seen some people say that it's a terrible idea. But anyway, what do you think? Do you think Robert Downey Jr. coming back to play Doctor Doom is a good thing or a bad thing? Let me know in the comments. And if you like content like this, please hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Click the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.